Hello, everybody. This is G, and this is the Sitrep.Podcast. This is episode 7, and returning from the Great North Flood is Chris, who
Hi, everybody.
Who unfortunately missed out on last week's episode due to battling the mighty flood of the Great North. So, how's things now? Are you dried out?
I'm dried out and don't need a boat or a life jacket anymore.
Fantastic. So has it like frozen over up there yet?
No, it's been actually kind of warm this week. We have had snow in some areas where I'm from, but where I'm in my city, there hasn't been any snow. We might see some probably about Halloween, maybe.
Wow.
We usually see a little bit by Halloween.
Yeah, we've had a major cool-off this past week. It's been in the mid-60s to low 70s, whereas, just a week ago we had 92. So I'm feeling I do not like fall. I am not a fall person. To me, fall is the season of death. Everything dies. So it's not my favorite season, and a lot of people around here in Illinois love fall. I'm just not one of them, so...
Yeah. I like spring.
Yeah,
spring's nice.
Spring is good because it tells me the warm weather is just around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
So, other than the Great Flood, what have you been up to this past week?
Painting and cleaning 3D prints for my modern. I'd like to be printing more, but I had a malfunction on my one printer, so I'm ordering some parts here so I can fix it so I'm back up and running. That's one thing about printers that everybody should be aware of. Things break. You never know when they're going to happen, but usually it's pretty cheap to fix it. But I'll have it up and running here pretty soon. But it's giving me good time to catch up with the prints that I have printed, cleaning them, priming them, and started painting and weathering them. So I've gotten quite a bit done over the last week, and I'm going to start working on more of my infantry from Special Artisan Service Miniatures. So for my Ukraine games, because I really want to have something. I've got a scenario in mind. That's why I'm printing off some of these vehicles, and it's a continuous kind of like scenario run over 3 games.
Nice.
So I'm hoping to run that by November.
Oh, that's excellent. That it just kind of reminds me of our conversation that Ralph and I had last week's show about scenarios and just, leading up from one game into the next game into the next game. So it's nice to see you working on some scenarios as well.
I love storylines and scenarios and see where they take me and stuff like that. I'm not really a tournament player and stuff like that. I like when you build a story with your games, it's more fun that way for me.
So what have you been printing? I know you've posted pictures on the Facebook page and then on your page, walkaboutgamez. For any of you who don't know, Chris has his own site and page. He's been posting a lot of really good stuff up there. You've been doing some nice from the bench videos as well, and so a little bit of snippets from gaming. I think Star Wars Legion with your son.
Yeah, so. we played in a Star Wars Legion tournament last Saturday. Or not Legion. No, it wasn't Legion. It was X-Wing last Saturday.
Oh, okay.
A weekend before it was Legion.
Okay, how'd you do?
I came in 13th out of 19. I hadn't played. It was the last time to play 1.0.
Oh, okay.
As everybody's switching over to 2.
Yeah.
And our local store, Wonderland Games and Hobbies, were so awesome. They don't want to lose players. So what they did, the owner and the manager, when you bought your tournament, get into the tournament, your fee, everybody got a conversion pack for their faction. So we saved a lot of money. And so my son entered and got his Imperial conversion pack, and I got a Rebel one. And we had a lot of fun. We were sick, but we had a cold, but it was all right.
You were battling cold and water.
And flooding, yeah. That was a great weekend.
So how'd your son do?
What my son... My son actually didn't do so well.
Oh.
He had some bad luck. He usually has really good luck. He does well at Legion, and he usually does fairly well at X-Wing, but for some reason he just did not do well, and he came in 19th.
Oh,
So,
well, it happens.
It does happen. He was happy just to get the conversion kit, and
sure.
Now a bunch of his friends are all playing, so it's really good. But for 3D prints, what have I printed? I've got 2 T-72s, different makes, BMP-2, BMP-1, BDRM-2 armored car. I've done some Ural trucks that are 2.5 tons.
Nice.
A BTR-60 and a D-30 122 millimeter howitzer.
Wow. Oh, is that the one you did the picture on, right?
Yeah. So and that's going to be, that's not going to be actually firing in the game.
I was going to say, I mean, that could go for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, it's basically one of the parts of the scenario I'm working on is it's an objective.
Okay.
And it's one side trying to stop the other side from setting it up to direct fire on some buildings in the town.
Okay.
So there's going to be a reconnaissance element trying to knock out or suppress the gun crew. So should be interesting.
Nice.
But that's, I think, the second part of the scenario. So yeah, it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to playing. My son and I are working on some buildings for it this weekend.
So why don't you give us a little background into your scenarios?
So the scenario is going to be Eastern Ukraine around Donetsk. I'm actually using real cities and towns. I've actually got a friend of mine that I served with in the Canadian Armed Forces is Ukrainian.
Oh, okay.
And he moved back in 2014 to help his grandmother get out of the Donetsk area, because that's where his grandmother lived.
Uh-huh.
And his grandfather died a couple of years earlier, so there was no one else. So he went back, got her out, and then he decided to stay. And he was in one of the volunteer battalions, but I think most of the volunteer battalions, just by what he said in his emails, have all been brought into the National Guard of Ukraine. So he's now in the National Guard of Ukraine, and he is in a town. I don't know if I should use the name of the town. I'm not going to use the name of the town, but it's close to the Donetsk airport. Okay. So and he's been sending me pictures of buildings and all this other stuff. And he doesn't think it's weird. He was a gamer, and he's a vet too. And he says, "Yeah, man, whenever I can, I'll send you some pictures."
Nice.
And so he sent me pictures of the buildings and stuff like that, and some of the vehicles. A lot of the vehicles aren't military vehicles; they're civilian vehicles that they've painted up too. So they work with what they've got.
Okay,
and some of it, he has sent me a picture. I'll have to find it, and I'm going to send it to you. It's a Maxim machine gun.
No way.
On the wheels.
Come on.
And yeah, no lie. They're still using, what is it, PTR anti-tank rifles from World War II.
Wow.
He sent me a picture of one made in 1941.
No kidding.
And I was like, what do you use that for? He says, basically long range, like if we get a sniper shooting at us, we'll shoot at him with that and try to suppress him. And I'm like, wow.
That's crazy.
But, so the scenarios that I'm working on are like based on some of the things that he's commented about in his emails. And so that's what I'm planning on doing is it's going to be a 3-part scenario. The first part is just a reconnaissance element of Ukrainian National Guardsmen. Just going forward and trying to see where enemy positions are and stuff like that. And and then we'll go from there. And I've got 2 parts, depending on what happens in the scenario. It'll lead to something else, and if they go a different way, it'll lead to something else. And then in the second part of it, it'll, depending on what happened in the first part, we'll probably see the artillery piece in the second part. If it didn't happen that way, it'll be in the third and final part.
Oh, okay.
So it could go, just multiple different ways. I've also made it random encounters for civilians. Because a lot of these little towns, they still have people that live in them. And they're right in the combat zone. And they're living in their basements and stuff. And most of them, it's kind of sad, they're elderly people,
Yeah.
But they can't get out for some reason. So, but that'll be in the scenario, and how the players, because it'll probably be me GMing or DMing or whatever you want to call it, reffing the game.
Okay.
And it'll be my son and probably one of my friends that'll play it to start it off and see how it goes. But yeah, that's what we're going to do, and I want to make it so how they deal with certain situations is how the story progresses.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty smart.
So we'll see what happens. But I'm thinking about using Skirmish Sangan.
So why are you choosing that? Just out of curiosity.
When I've been talking to Colin, and on the last podcast, the one I missed, when you and Ralph were talking about different elements of the game, and more of a role-playing kind of type system, I thought it would be better for the storyline and how I'm doing it. And so I'm going to try it with Skirmish Sangan and see how it goes.
Okay.
And I've got a copy of the rules coming, and then I will let everybody, for sure, I'll be taking more pictures as I build stuff up and my paint stuff. And I will be going on Beasts of War and doing projects on there.
Fantastic.
Starting this weekend. My son and I have discussed it. We're going to start doing projects on Beasts of War. He's going to be doing some of his Star Wars on there, and I'm going to be doing some of my modern on there.
Oh, good. That's
and
excellent.
Then we'll be posting on there, and we'll be doing our YouTube videos. We do. I'm going to start talking on some of my YouTube videos, but sometimes I don't. I start taking pictures as I do things. And sometimes it's easier for me to just do a slideshow and just put music in the background.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes because I'm doing weekly updates on some projects, I just do that for on the bench. But I'll probably start doing more talking because we've got an area now that we can set up for kind of a studio for camera and stuff like that. So we can start doing that now.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. I've been just painting and building and just trying to catch up with 3D prints. I had printed so much stuff, and I was like, I gotta start painting and putting this stuff together if I want to play in November.
Yeah, that's the thing. Always trying to get everything up and going. So, well, it sounds like you got your hands full.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. I got a package from Full Battle Rattle. When did I get that? Monday. And I got some more modern Canadians from him. He shipped it before he went on his vacation. And so I'll be posting a video review of all the miniatures that I've gotten from him, because I've gotten some of them painted, and I've got some in priming stage, and then I've got some in bare metal. So I'm going to be showing off in the 3 stages. Fantastic. Yeah, so that'll be going up soon.
So before we jump ahead, speaking of Beast of War, we have a little bit of exciting news to share with everybody.
Yes, very exciting.
So, as you may know, I'm part of the team for Beast of War, or On the Table, as we're changing our name to. And speaking with Sam, who's our, the content manager, studio manager? I keep getting him confused. I
think he's content
manager.
Yeah,
yes,
I think so.
Justin's studio manager. So, speaking with Sam this past week, he was really excited about some of the positive feedback that they had been seeing for our podcast. So, speaking to him, he's agreed to give us a regular slot on Beast of War /OTT. It'll be Fridays at 9 a.m., so it will be posting there as well, which will give us a nice worldwide audience, which is very exciting. And, they just hit, we just hit 80,000 YouTube subscribers this past week, I think it was. Awesome. And then, between Facebook and everything else, we have a very large audience. So this will definitely help the podcast grow. So, which also leads us to a little bit of a quandary. Chris and I were talking before we started recording this episode about the frequency of the episodes. We have been trying to put these out weekly. For the most part, we've been pretty successful, other than a couple weeks when I was traveling and some other things were going on. And we were wondering, would it be best to be a weekly show or a bi-weekly show? So we kind of made a decision, and then we kind of backtracked a little bit and said, maybe we should open it up to you guys listening and see what you think. There are pros and cons to both. Obviously, a weekly show keeps it fresh in people's minds. The con is just making sure we have the time and the material to cover, whereas a bi-weekly show, yes, it's not always right there, because it's not a weekly episode, but it does give us a little bit more time to work on content and, get guests scheduled and things like that. So we're going to leave it up to you to help us make that decision. So we're going to put a poll on our Facebook page. That's the Sitrep.Podcast Facebook page. If you just put in Sitrep.Podcast, it'll come up. And just take the poll for us, and we'll see what we come up with. And we'll make an announcement in the next week's show. So if we do decide to go to bi-weekly, we will have one show next Friday after this one, and then it will start on a rotating basis. So we'll see what you guys have to say. So other than that, what have I been doing? Well, between school, because I'm back in school to get working on my master's, and everything else that's going on in my life, I've had a little bit of time to start working on the Polish Grom from SASM, Special Artisan Service Miniatures from Tim. Speaking of which, just so you guys are aware, now I know Tim's been on the show a couple times. Tim will pop in from time to time. He's got a lot going on, and we just feel that it's always good to bring in different guests at times. So, but don't worry, he's not going anywhere. We will be definitely having him on the show in the future as well. He's a wonderful guy, and he makes some really good products, and we can't wait to talk to him again and see what he's got coming down the pike. So I've been working on those. I'm hoping to start really getting painting on them. And then non-related to miniature wargaming per se is that I just picked up, us weird Americans and our love for firearms. I just picked up my new Sig Sauer P2022, which is a 40 Smith & Wesson. So
nice.
Yes, I was really looking for a P226, but I didn't want to spend $1,000.
Yeah.
But boy, they're nice guns. But the 2022 is SIG's answer to a lot of the polymer guns, i.e. the Glock, which I am not a fan of. I've carried Glock when I was a police officer, did not like it. I actually traded from that back to a government frame 1911.
Yeah.
And then I had a Springfield XD, which is a Springfield Armory's polymer gun, which is a good gun. I carried that my last 4 or 5 years working in the police department. But what got me to get a SIG was, obviously, we know the Navy SEALs use them.
SEALs, yeah.
Secret Service uses them, or they did, and the FBI. So, I mean, a lot of agencies use them. And what made me want to get one is I had never fired one, and then my uncle, who had just retired from another police department, came out to my dad's. My dad lives on a farm, so when the family gets together, we do what typical Americans do. We shoot guns, So we built our own little shooting range in the pasture. So we're out there shooting, and he pulled out his SIG and I got to shoot it. I'm like, oh my God, this gun's amazing. So I've been looking for one ever since, and I got a really good price on this. So we went out this past weekend, and I was doing some target practice, and boy, does it shoot nice. And what am I trying to say? My shot group was really tight. I mean, I could put a quarter over my shot group at times. So, and Dawn was out with me, and she has never shot a gun at all. And so I let her shoot the SIG, and she did not like it whatsoever. No, did not like it. I gave her my grandpa's old 5-shot 38, Smith & Wesson 38, and she liked that a little bit better, but still didn't like the kick. You know, it's a pistol. There's going to be a little kick.
Little bit, yeah.
So then I pulled out the old 22 and let her shoot that, and she liked that because, you know, it's like shooting a BB gun, really. There's not much to it. Yeah, so she enjoyed that, but it was nice. So, you know, it just kind of leads me to something that Ralph posted in our little group that we have, you know, when we want to shoot ideas back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can bring it up here. Where is it, Ralph? It was about... Oh, where is it? You know what I'm talking about? About reality versus gameplay. Let me see if I can find it here.
I might have missed that one.
It's in the messenger here. Ralph, where are you, Ralph? There it is. Okay, so he put... Where are you? We had a really good conversations going back and forth. Possible talking point. Force creation. Do you create a force to be accurate representation of the unit? I know I won't be able to participate in it, so he unfortunately he can't be with us this week, but he wanted to pose that. So do we go off of reality or playability? You know, and how I tie this in with the conversation with the SIG, if you want to get really realistic, you would go with only equipment that you know that unit would use versus just anything. Counterpoint to that argument, if anybody is associated or is familiar with special operations units, and we're going to talk special operations. Yes, this is modern warfare we're talking about, but let's talk special operations first. Special operations units, while they are trained mainly with their government's choice of weapons based on their contracts, they are also typically trained to use any available weapon in the theater of operations they're going to. If you look at pictures from Afghanistan, because it's still going on for the most part, and you look at special operations forces participating in Afghanistan, whether that's American, that's British, Canadian. Does Canada have special operation forces?
Yeah, or you got JTF too.
Okay. See, that's one I'm not familiar with. If you
look
go ahead.
We've got CAN SOFCOM, which is like an organization. It's a headquarters for the 5 units that make up our special forces.
Okay.
And they work with Navy SEALs, Green Berets. They work with all the SAS and everybody like that. Most of the units, because we used to have, back when I was in the military, we didn't have JTF. We had commando units, and we had a parachute regiment. And after the parachute regiment got disbanded, everything kind of went to JTF. So, and that stands for Joint Task Force. And they run, you know, they got a, thinking of you and your love of helicopters, they got a Special Operations Aviation Squadron.
Oh, nice. So it's kind of like the 160th?
Yeah, and they've got all that kind of stuff, and then they got a Special Operations Regiment, and they all do different things. But JTF2 is our main Special Forces unit, and they're serving. I think they're serving in Syria, in that area with Peshmerga and stuff.
Okay.
The last time I heard, but you know how Special Forces are.
Yeah.
You know. They could be one place one time and then gone the next and somewhere else. So, yeah, we do have a Special Forces unit.
Okay. Well, so just no matter what country you are, they typically will become familiarized with the weapons of the theater of operations. because like I was saying, is if you look at a lot of the pictures coming out of, say, Afghanistan, you will see these guys using Soviet bloc weapons, AKs and SKs, whatever they can get their hands on. So, because a lot of times they would go what's called sterile for equipment, so it really doesn't have identifiers on it to identify your unit, your country of origin, those type of things. So they'll mix up equipment and weapons and all that. So they have to be familiar with that. So when you go back to playing, so like for your scenarios, even though yours are going to be taking part in, is that considered Eastern European or the Russia? It's hard to say.
I'd say, I would say Eastern Ukraine.
Is Ukraine considered part of Europe now?
They are.
Okay.
Technically, I think they are. Okay. But so I would say Eastern European.
Okay. So, I mean, they're going to be using a lot of probably Soviet bloc, Soviet era weapons on both sides. But there's also been an influx of American weapons. You'll see people with M16s, M4s, It's whatever you can buy is what you're going to get. And another point to any war, there's always going to be somebody willing to sell you just about anything.
Yeah.
If you've got the money, somebody will find a way of getting you whatever it is you want.
They're making Tavors in the Ukraine.
Really?
There's units that are equipped with Tavors.
Wow.
So I don't know how many units, but I've seen footage of different, like their Independence Day parade. They had like guys with Tavors marching down the road.
Why don't you explain that to people who may not be familiar with it?
A Tavor is the standard issue assault rifle for the Israeli Defense Force. It is a bullpup 5.56 assault rifle. And I believe there's a couple other countries that use it, but I believe Ukraine actually has the rights to produce Tavors in country. So I don't know if that's going to be like we're going to see a lot more of them. There's also an AK variant that looks like an M4 that's out as well. And I believe the miniatures at least 2 miniatures that Tim produces for his Ukrainian line are actually equipped with that rifle.
Oh, nice.
So they've got different kinds of weapons there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
then, getting back to Ralph, do you base it on reality or on playability? I think it's got to be a combination of both. Because most people that play modern warfare games, whether it's Skirmish Engine, Spectre, Force on Force, you name the rule set, it's based on reality in some aspect. And the people that play it are looking for some sense of realism. You're not going to see people running around with laser rifles. That's just silly. So, but how much of realism do you let get in the way of your games? I don't think it's so much in you picking your armies or designing your squads, platoons, teams, whatever your size that you're playing with. I think it comes down to the rule set more than your design of it. What is the rule set allowed? How does the rule set handle weapons? So, to his point, I think there's always going to be a sense of realism to anybody who plays modern war games, miniature war games, or wargaming in general. But it also is going to depend on the rule set. And as Ralph and I were talking about in last week's episode, I mentioned about bolt action. Great game. Yeah. It's what I call on the lighter side of historical war games. Because it plays fast, it plays easy. It's not an easy game to master. There are still tactics and strategy. But just about anybody could play it. If you've played any type of war game, no matter the era, genre, you would be able to play bolt action. My greatest frustration with this, and you'll hear this from other people, is ranges.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. And I'm not a rivet counter. I don't go out and say, oh, that French uniform from 1815 did not have that many buttons on it. You will never hear me do that. However, when you're playing a scenario and you have an M1 Garand and it says you can only shoot, 16 inches maybe?
Yeah.
And you're like
16,
24 inches, and you're looking at the table at a 4x8 table or 4x6, whatever you're playing on. You're going, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's where I get a little frustrated. I understand why they do it. It's part of the flow of the game, and you don't want to get bogged down in this. And then they consider all rifles. They consider all submachine guns. There isn't the uniqueness of certain weapons. Like an M1 has a higher rate of fire than a Lee Enfield did.
Yeah.
Lee Enfield was bolt action. A Garand was semi-automatic gas chambered. Mm-hmm. So you could go through a whole 8-round clip in an M1 much faster than you could operate the bolt on a Lee Enfield. But they count them as the same weapon. So that's where I get a little frustrated in some of the rule sets. So I think, to Ralph's point, yes, we all want to play and form our units realistically, but I think the rule set is what's going to help drive that.
Yeah, I agree. I've played bolt action, and I agree. The rules are easy but harder to master. But the ranges. That's why I've played a couple games that are World War II, mm-hmm. and they don't actually have ranges. And but they have a lot of scenery or terrain on the board.
Yeah.
So you're not getting these like I can shoot completely across the board kind of like thing. So, but that's one of the things that bothers me about miniatures gaming sometimes, and that's why with some games I play it in smaller scales and just keep, if it's made for a 28 mil, it's a 28 mil rule system. I'll play it with 10 or 15 mil, and then those ranges feel a little bit more realistic to me.
Yeah.
But at 16 and 24 inches, that's not very far for a modern rifle.
No, it sure isn't.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about upcoming guests? Did we talk about our guests that we'll have coming?
No, we haven't. We haven't talked about it. So I'm in the process of talking with 2 different companies and the people that run those companies. And one of them is a Canadian, and his company is called Full Battle Rattle. And he makes modern 28 mil Canadian infantry for Afghanistan or wherever you want to use these infantry. And his name is Alex McCutcheon, and he will be hopefully on the show soon. He's on vacation right now, so I'm hopefully going to get a hold of him this weekend and set up a time for an interview with him and get a chat and see what new things he's got coming down the pike. And then we have Colin from Radio Dish Dash and the Skirmish Sangan. And hopefully we'll have him on in the next probably week to 2 weeks, and we'll talk to him about what they've got coming up. I believe I've heard rumors of a Kickstarter, so we'll talk to him about those kind of things. And hopefully I get some games in with the rules, but maybe before he comes on the show so I can pick his brain. But that's who we've got coming down the pike for interviews.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I think when we have them on, we will pretty much devote the episode to their company and their games or miniatures, because there's a lot from Radio Dish Dash to talk about. At least by that time you'll have the rule book. I'll have the rule book in front of us. And, hopefully we can get Ralph on. And then we're having another person be joining our team. I don't think I told you, or did I tell you?
Yes, you did. I'm looking forward to it.
So, for those of you who are members or are familiar with Beast of War on tabletop, it's not on tabletop, it's on the table.
On the table.
On the table, right? Yeah. I always get that tripped up. But our historical editor over there, Jim, and he's known as Oriskany on the site, is going to be part of our team. He's very excited. I reached out to him last week and I said, hey, we've got this podcast, and he had made a comment on one of the episodes that had been posted on the site already, and he was very excited to be part of it. He says he has a lot of material, and knowing him, he has a lot of material.
Yeah.
So, I'm very excited because I cannot wait to get a 4-way conversation going.
Yeah.
I am firmly in the camp of the more voices we have on this podcast, getting a good, robust conversation going, the more entertaining it will be for the listener. And it'd be really nice because, God help us, Jim is a Marine, so we can't hold that against him. However, I will. Sorry if anybody out there is a Marine. It's like high school rivalry.
Guess I shouldn't tell you that I was thinking about joining the Marine Corps with my cousins.
Oh, Lord. Everybody has to have that stepbrother, right? The stepchild. No, the Marines serve a definite purpose, and they're, pretty amazing people. I will give them credit where credit is due. So you'll have, a U.S. Marine veteran on. You'll have a U.S. Army, a Canadian Army, and Ralph is our graphics guru. So, he's got some exciting projects. He's actually worked on a really awesome logo for T-shirts and things, and it looks really sharp. I was amazed. Really good. I mean, he turned it around in minutes. It was amazing how talented he is. So we're looking forward to getting Jim on the show here in the future. I can tell you this week, he should actually be taking off shortly. He's heading over to Ireland for the Bolt Action Boot Camp that we're running this weekend.
I'm jealous.
I am too. This is one of the first boot camps I haven't been there for. So we usually make the trip to Ireland twice a year, and this year we haven't gone once yet. We usually go in springtime for either Salute or UK Games Expo, but unfortunately my job had some issues, so I could not take the time. Yeah. And then we go in the fall sometime for typically a boot camp. So, and this will be the first year we haven't done that. Not to say we won't still make a trek to Ireland sometime before the year's end, but as of right now, there are no plans for it. So if you guys have nothing going on this weekend, or if you got some time, hop on over to Beast of War and check out the boot camp. It's amazing. The tables they do for it, they've got a Tobruk table. It's World War II desert warfare. Yeah. So they're playing the Brits versus the Germans.
Africa War?
Yeah. What is it, the German army? I can't remember what the proper terminology is, but it's the Germans against the Brits. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff, and then Jim's bringing his own unique twist to it, so there'll be a lot of history and background that he'll be bringing. So we're excited to be having him join us as well as part of the crew. Yeah, so awesome. Another thing that came up this week that I thought you and I, being that we're veterans, and I know we've touched on this in the past, but on Beast of War, and I don't mean to be stealing a lot of material from them, but they brought up a really good topic on their XLBS, which is their members-only weekend show on Sundays. And I thought it was very appropriate, and they did give us a shout-out during the episode.
I heard of that.
So I missed it the first time because I talked to Sam, and I go, hey, Sam, can I put a little post up, or can I do a little quick vlog saying, hey, we're going to be airing the Sitrep.Podcast on Fridays? And he goes, well, I already mentioned it in the XLBS. And I went, you did? So I had to go back and rewatch it. It was like right at the last minute. He kind of threw it in there right before they said goodbye. So, yeah. But the topic was, is it too soon? Or when is it too soon? And there's a lot of comments on there. I put in my 2 cents worth on it. And personally speaking, now this is just my personal interpretation, it's never too soon. No. The reason being is, at least in my opinion, the reason it's never too soon is because we learn from gaming. If, as I said in my comment, when in the U.S. military at Command College, this is where your upper ranking officers go to get advanced training and degrees to become, generals, essentially. They play war games. The purpose of playing these war games is to learn movement and control and supply. How does an army move? How do you command an army? So they play a lot of war games. They play war games at West Point. I participated in several war games at the company, battalion, brigade level at JRTC. For those who are not familiar with the U.S. military, JRTC is the Joint Readiness Task Training Center, and that's in Fort Polk, Louisiana. So basically what happens is when a brigade, the last one I did was the 76 SIB, Separate Infantry Brigade. It was a National Guard Infantry Brigade out of Indiana and Colorado, I think is their other base. They were in the rotation for JRTC, so we did a pre-JRTC in Indiana at their major training site and just rehearsed what you would do at JRTC. So essentially what happens is a brigade, division, it's typically brigades, get activated, you go down there, you have laser targeting, was it the PASS system? I can't remember now. Boy, it's escaped me. It's been so long. And you play combat, and you die, or get captured. And if you get captured, you go to the PIHA, which is the prisoner holding area. And you go through this. You play war games. The purpose of a war game is to educate and to train and see the big picture. There were some people say, well, I know vets that would never touch a modern war game. You know, they're from Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or whatever. And I can tell you that's very true. There are some that probably do not. And
but
that is
more that do, I think.
It's perfectly acceptable, and I pose no judgment one way or the other. I can tell you my sons, one went to Iraq, one went to Afghanistan. They play war games. You know, they typically don't have a problem. Now, my one son does have a little bit of, PTSD, and he gets a little anxious around big crowds. But when it's his family and, then he's okay. And sometimes, and in my case, it helps me through some of my issues to be able to kind of go through some of the scenarios, if you will. The thing about it is we're not reliving a moment in time. It's not like you're on patrol. Okay, we're doing this exact patrol on this exact date at this exact time with these exact people, and you know who's going to either get injured, killed, or whatever. Yeah. What you're doing is you're playing a scenario within a theater of operations. And you're thinking, okay, how could this have done this? How could we have done this? If you play the game responsibly and respectfully, so the two R's as I call them, I don't see problems with it. Now, there are people out there that obviously will disagree with me, and you've been to Bosnia, if I remember correctly, right?
Sarajevo.
So you know, from your own standpoint, how you feel about these items. What I found interesting, and correct me if you saw it differently, a lot of the people that seem to have problems or raised the concerns about it being too soon have never served.
No, that's I've gotten a little bit of grief from one family member because I'll post pictures on Facebook or Instagram of what I'm working on, and one friend, and neither of them was served, and I mentioned that. I said the exact same thing you did. It's a learning tool. It also helps me with my PTSD, my hobby, in gaming, and learning about things, because. I wouldn't have thought, I learned a lot about where my friend Alex is. I'm concerned about him coming, surviving all this. But it also, I kind of feel like I bond with him because I'm learning these things. And it is educational. Like my son, he'll play a World War II game with me, and I'll explain some history to him that they don't teach in school. And modern wargaming, I don't think there is too soon. I really don't. I really don't think that there's. I think most people that complain about it probably haven't served, and the ones that, I know people that have served and they don't. It's not their thing, but they don't say anything.
Right.
It's usually people that haven't served. They'll say something. So I don't know why that is, but that seems to be the case. It's people that haven't served. Usually I understand and I respect their opinion, and I think they should respect our doing it as well. Our playing modern war games.
Yeah, I mean, and I have not run across anybody who's like been so adamantly opposed to it that they've made me uncomfortable. They voice their opinion, and that's fine. I mean, it's a free country, and we all have the right to voice our opinions, and we welcome debate. I mean, honestly, if you had no debate and everybody was on the same page, life would be rather boring. It's just a matter of doing it respectfully. I respect your opinion, you respect my opinion. Sam, one of the other team members on the show, doesn't play World War II games because his grandfather, if I'm trying to remember this correctly, I don't want to misspeak, was in World War II, and I think he died or was severely injured, and to him it's troubling to kind of relive it, if you will, because it's something where they had felt a very strong loss. Again, I totally respect that. That's the nice thing about gaming. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I thought everybody in the show handled it very well by, this is this opinion, but that doesn't mean your opinion's wrong. So it's one of those topics that I don't think they'll ever go away, but I think we're all in agreement that it's never too soon.
No, it's not.
I also feel that by gaming in true life historical context, we are keeping people's memories alive. As a point I made in my comment on the feedback was, if we didn't have the interest in World War II that we do, and people weren't playing a lot of World War II games, whether it's Bolt Action, Flames of War, Chain of Command, etc., what's Pierre's game? I want to play that.
Battle Group.
Battle Group. That's one looks amazing. I've never played it. I don't even have a rule book, and I collect rule books, so I have to get one of these days. If we didn't have all that, we would, unfortunately, World War II would go the way of World War I.
Yeah.
Not many people play World War I games. I'm very interested in World War I, and I love to hear about people playing it because I just don't have anything to do with World War I. My great-grandfather fought in World War I, and I really know nothing about it, other than what I've learned on my own. So by playing a war game, you're also keeping people's memory alive, not per se to the person, but the era, the events, the trials and tribulations that they had. So it's also observing the sacrifices and what these people accomplished during these times. And that holds true throughout the time, whether that's World War II,
American Civil War,
any of them. Even the time when the Americans invaded Canada and held Canada for like 2 weeks, whatever it was back in the day. So, it's reliving history. I am a huge history buff, not to the point of Jim. Jim could write volumes of history. I just like to know history. I am a firm believer in the saying, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so, again, it all leads back to, no, it's not too soon. Learn, appreciate, respect, and play responsibly.
History is important.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on that topic.
No, I agree. It's never too soon. And I think people, you could learn a lot. You can learn a lot from history. I worked in a museum. I don't know if you knew this. I worked in a museum for over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And you learn a lot about history and respecting, what has happened, and learning about the good things and the bad things. So I think it's never too soon. You should be aware of what's going on in the world. Like, if terrible things are happening, you should kind of be aware of some of those things, and I think it's important. So, but that's all I have to say on the subject. It's like, I was quite impressed how that went on BC War. I watched it twice, and it was a great show. I thought it was a good subject, and it got some good conversation going as well. So, yeah, but that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I'm liking the new format for the XLBS.
Yeah,
I like that they've now separated the two shows. So it's nice to see that. So let's move on a little bit to some news. Just browsing around Facebook and other internet sites. I was looking on the Spectre Operations Wargaming site, and a couple items caught my eye. The first one was a building from Knights of Dice. Knights of Dice makes some incredible terrain. And
I've got some of their stuff.
An office building that they've got all painted up, and it looks really sharp. They really do good work. And we'll put a link into it. When you look at it on their page, it doesn't look anything special. It truly relates to how well you paint and decorate and make it your own. I can definitely see this being part of a table for a scenario, in anywhere in the world, essentially. It's a pretty generic building that it can be used just about anywhere and would fit in anywhere where you'd have somewhat of a more modernish building. Even in some of the older towns in Asia and Africa, you still have modern buildings supplemented into where there are, more traditional buildings. So it's quite a nice building. I like they put graffiti work on it. Again, it comes down to what do you want to make of the game, of your terrain. Yeah. So they do some really good work.
Viv's the owner, Viv, he's a really good guy. He plays, or he was playing Force on Force for quite some time, and I saw his Afghans and stuff like that, and he's got a lot of Adobe style buildings that he's done up for his company as well, and that's a really great line. And then I've got his park benches, and he's got antennas and ductwork to add to those buildings, like that building that you're talking about. I think it's called the Riverside Apartment Building. And he's added the antennas on the outside and stuff like that. And you're right, that graffiti looks awesome.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So another item that caught my eye, and it's not a product, it's a table. There is a gentleman on the site, he's a new member, Mike Kiplinger, and he put in pictures of his game table, and holy moly, is it nice. It's obviously in the Middle East somewhere, so it has more of the desert terrain style. And just scrolling through the pictures, he's done a really nice job with not only painting and weathering the buildings, but the board itself, but all the scatter terrain. I'll tell you what, scatter terrain really makes a game board.
It's the most important part sometimes.
And while none of this is truly necessary to play a game, you could just throw a couple boxes down or some unfinished buildings and play on any table surface. It sure elevates your game. It just really immerses you into the game itself. And his pictures are really nice. I'm impressed. I mean, obviously it's taken him quite some time to do this. He's put a lot of time and effort into it, and a job well done on these.
I just love the dirt.
Yeah, it's very realistic.
It's like a sandbox. It looks awesome.
Yeah, I did a really good job on it. And, that leads us to a point. We'd love to see your guys' work, so make sure you're posting it on the pages. And, we still had a contest going on. I think we forgot to mention it in the last couple episodes.
Yeah, we should mention it again.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead, Chris? Or do you want me to do it? I can do it.
You do it.
Okay. Right. So we have a contest. It's a scenario contest. What is your ultimate scenario? Tell us about what you would like to play in a scenario. You don't have to be fully in depth with it. Just give us a good background in it, and tell us, rule system you think it would go well with, size of forces, the scenario. Just get us hooked into your scenario, saying we want to pick the one that is really in depth. We originally had this contest running till the end of this month. We're going to go a little longer. We're going to give you to October 15th. Yeah. Because we have, to be fair, we haven't mentioned the last couple episodes, and we want to make sure everybody knows that. And we will definitely have a prize. So get your scenarios in, and you guys could definitely win yourselves a prize. And the scenarios that we pick, we will talk about them on a future episode as well. So
I'll make sure to post something on the Facebook group about the contest as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's just some amazing stuff. Oh, I'm scrolling down the page. He has pictures in quote unquote night vision. He used a green floodlight. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty
also, guys, feel free to let us know what you're working on.
Yeah,
we'd like to see your work. I asked some people about that, and a couple people. One guy posted his NVA, a picture of his NVA, North Vietnamese Army.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool. So
that was on the modern miniature warfare group, wasn't it? I believe.
No, that was on Sitrep.
Oh, it was on Sitrep. Well, all right. Hey,
hey,
credit where credit's due. Excellent. So I'm seeing some really nice pictures, and on the modern group, Frazier. Let's see if I can click back on his name here. Posted something that modern manufacturers have been missing from their American troops. There's a picture of obviously it's a Spec Ops troop sitting on top of a mountain. I'm assuming it's in Afghanistan somewhere. And on his backpack, he's got an American flag banded together on his pack.
Yeah.
Easily enough added. A little green stuff, and you could do the same thing. So then I'm looking at his multicam fatigues, and I'm going, ugh. The painting multicam. Camouflage in general, but who has an excellent tutorial on painting multicam? It's on the Spectre website.
Yes.
So if you guys are looking for it, go to the Spectre website, and if you didn't know, they've redesigned their website, so it's really nice now. And they've got the new supplement for Jungle Warfare on there as well that you can download for free.
That was another thing I noticed in that Beast of War episode where they were talking about that.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah, and Warren, of course, put his twist on it that, it could be the grounds for Predator.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. He comes up with some special ideas.
Yes, he does. Well, that's why he's Warren. So
yeah.
But I just found the NVA, and they look amazing. Yeah. Well done. So yeah, guys, get your projects up there. Get your anything you got going, and let us know about the episodes. How often you'd like to hear them. We're still trying to work through the possibility of a live show. I think we'll hold off on that until we get a few more members.
Yeah.
We're steadily growing.
Yeah.
I think we're almost to 50 now. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but for a very small podcast that's only been around for roughly a month and a half, and it's a very finite niche. So I see us growing. So once we get, I'm going to say, Chris, the challenge is once we hit 100, we'll do a live show.
We'll do a show?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds really good.
Yeah, we'll set up a live show, and we'll figure out how to get you guys to be able to participate in it and the whole 9 yards. We'll probably do a live stream out to Facebook or YouTube or something like that at the time. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it. But
yeah, probably.
Definitely want to get you guys involved in it. I think that's pretty much all I have for today. Do you have any more to add for today?
I think that is it.
Okay.
I think that's for this week.
All right. Well, guys, there you have it. We got you right to our hour time limit. We try and keep the show to an hour and a half to help you get, some painting done without taking up too much of your free time. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Look for the next episode coming soon. We've got special guests coming. We've got added members to the team. And as always, we appreciate Chris being here, even after fighting the mighty Poseidon in his own home. As we like to say, RTB, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.